Hi, this is Perry Carpenter. Welcome. And today I am joined by a great colleague of mine, Roger Grimes, who is known before as data-driven defense evangelist. So welcome, Roger. Thanks for joining. Let's get straight into it. I know today you wanted to talk about 3 top defenses that organizations should be thinking about. So why don't you lay that out and talk about what that actually is going to protect people from?
Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate everybody being here, and thanks, Barry, for the invitation. I get asked a lot, like, what can I do to protect myself? Should I have this device, that device, antivirus, whatever it is? And the answer has been, for the entirety of computers, really 3 things. Like, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. You don't have to buy expensive software. You don't have to buy $1 million device. It really is 3 pretty simple things, because the threats really haven't changed that much over the decades. But number 1 for sure is do anything you can to stop from being socially engineered or phished. So whatever, policies, technical defenses, education that you can do for yourself or for your company. By the way, these 3 things apply to you at home or to your entire organization, no matter how big it is. But number 1, easily today, is to prevent social engineering, being phished. So a social engineer or phish is, some email or website is trying, or some message is trying to con you into providing confidential information, usually your login name and password, or into running a Trojan horse program that when you run, it takes over your device and or your network. And the easily just preventing that alone has the biggest impact on your security at home, your kids' security at home, your computers at work, your entire organization. Anything you can do to prevent phishing. And again, it's a combination of, if you're at a policy, if you're at a corporation, organization, technical defenses, that would be any type of software configuration that prevents that, phishing attack from getting to you. And then education, because no matter how good your policies and your technical defenses are, there will be some amount of social engineering phishing that gets to you or your kids or your organization. So people need to be taught how to recognize that social engineering and then how to handle it, which is hopefully to report it, delete it, or ignore it. But that, it's been that way for almost the entirety of computers. When I got back into computer security in the late 80s, social engineering was number 1 way that people got successfully attacked. So yeah, then number 2 is unpatched software. Anything you can do to patch software so it's not exploited by an attacker or by malware is easily the number 2 thing that you can do today. Sometimes it's been the number 1 way. I mean, I remember one year, I forget what year it was, I think it was 1995 or 97, unpatched Oracle Java was one software program, unpatched, it was responsible for over 90% of all successful web exploits, meaning that if you as an organization patched 1 program, you got rid of 90% of your risk. And it's and unpatched software and social engineering have been the number 1. Number 2, they switch every now and then ways that organizations and devices are compromised for the entirety of computers. There's some brief exceptions. Sometimes DOS boot viruses, if you remember that advice in the late 80s, hey, make sure you don't leave a floppy disk in your computer when you reboot it. Email worms and viruses like I love you worms are a big deal, where you may get tricked in an email and open the email and it goes to everywhere. So, and that really was social engineering, right?
Yeah.
So those 2 things, stopping social engineering, patching your software. For most people, that gets rid of almost all of the risks. If you successfully handle those 2 threats, it means for every organization, every person, that matters more than everything else you can do together to take care of those 2 things.
Yeah. So if you're looking for low hanging fruit, then those are the 2 to start dealing with and building risk models around.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So what else you got for us? I know you're going through top 3 things to think about when it comes to creating defense. So what do you got?
So then the third thing that actually is a little bit more flexible depending on what an organization has already done. Like for some organizations, preventing insider threats may be the biggest deal. or preventing, if you're a database company with SQL, maybe stopping SQL injections would be number 3. But if you just look generally, what the third most method used to attack people, it's passwords. It's compromised passwords. So being able to use, you want to use a password. Everybody wants to use a password that is not easily guessable or crackable. And that really means, you'll hear people, oh, you need a 20-character password, or you need a passphrase. No, to prevent 95, 99% of all password attacks, all you need is an 8-character password with some complexity. And the only type of attack that wouldn't stop would be password hash cracking, where an attacker has somehow obtained your password hash, the hash of your password, of your plain text password, and then is using some type of, graphical processing unit to try to convert your password hash back to the plain text password that it represents. In order to prevent that type of attack, your password does need to be 16 characters or longer to prevent that. The thing is that password hash cracking is not nearly as popular today as it used to be. So the vast majority of password hash or password attacks can be prevented by using shorter or at least 8-character passwords. They don't have to be super long, with some complexity. But the biggest thing is don't reuse them across multiple websites and services. The average person has 3 to 9 passwords that they share between over 150 to 170 websites, which means there is a substantial amount of password reuse. And when one of those websites gets compromised and then your password is put out there in a password dump somewhere, all of these attackers can then use your login name and password to try to compromise you in other ways. So maybe they compromise some website that you go to because you love bulldogs, and it's a special bulldog website. But that password is the same one that you use on, Amazon and Instagram and some of the places where you buy and you store your credit card. So the third most common way to prevent attacks is to make a reasonable password, but it only has to be 8 characters. It doesn't have to be 20 characters. But don't reuse the same password across any 2 unrelated websites or services.
Okay. And then what do you think on that? What do you think about password managers or other methods for dealing with the 150, 200 accounts that people have?
I'm a big fan. I've only been using a password manager for about 2 to 3 years. And it takes you a couple of days to get used to using one. And, one day, if everybody used one, maybe one day they get attacked. Right now, they're actually not attacked all that much because most people aren't using them. But the biggest thing they give you, so they could be the single point of failure, like if they become popular, maybe a virus or a hacker looks for them and compromises them, sucks all your passwords. That's always
the big fear that you hear from people before they implement them, is it's the keys to the kingdom type of issue.
Yeah, the thing is that in order for that to occur, they have to be in your workstation, and they can get your passwords by key logging you and a million other things.
Yeah,
and probably more importantly, it's just not done a whole lot. When I talk to password manager vendors and to people that use password managers, there have been attacks that have stolen passwords to password managers, but they actually have not gone out of their way. The malware is not coded yet to steal the passwords from the password managers. So as long as it's a single point of failure, but it's really kind of game over anyways, because your workstation means it's already owned and they can get it a million other ways. They can just put an eavesdropping Trojan on your machine. But more importantly, is the biggest risk to most passwords is that the reuse across multiple websites and services. And so a password manager allows you to use long, complex passwords that are unique for every website and service. That is your most likely way to be compromised because of a password, is password reuse. And password managers help you prevent password reuse. And because of that, I think everybody should use them. I think they're a good idea. And maybe one day when they're successfully targeted all the time by malware and hackers, maybe the advice changes a little bit. But I'm kind of like, it's game over if they're already on your desktop.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you make a good point there that we also need to tease out that storing passwords in your browser is not the same as using a third-party password manager. I know one of the first things that many hackers do as soon as they get on your desktop is dump every password from Chrome that they can, and see how far they can get there. And so definitely keep in mind that there are levels of sophistication when it comes to password managers.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, Perry. And I always, as a data-driven guy, I always like there's a lot of ways you can be attacked. We can be attacked by nuclear bombs, but so far that's only occurred twice, right, in World War II. And so the risk of us being attacked by a nuclear bomb is actually kind of low. And so we really need to focus on the real attacks. Well, malware that looks into browser password managers, that actually is a fairly popular attack point where they collect those passwords, TrickBot or something collects those passwords, sends them out. That happens all the time. Malware that targets real password commercial managers, I haven't seen yet. And when I reach out to the password manager vendors, I go, hey, have you seen an attack where they attacked your product, or know of an attack where they literally targeted your product and sucked out and siphoned the passwords? They say no. So again, it's kind of a risk trade-off. And so if you ask me, okay, password managers and browsers are attacked all the time. Password managers, third-party commercial products, so far either not or just a little bit. And so far less risk in using an external third-party password manager than using the password manager in your browser that is attacked all the time.
Great. Well, I think that we've probably filled everybody's minds as much as we should today. So, Roger, thank you so much for carving a little bit of time out of your day to spend with us. And I super, super appreciate it.
Thanks. Glad to. Thanks.
Thanks.